Welcome to PR Talk, sponsored by the PRSA of Oregon and part of the MPN, the Marketing Podcast Network. I'm your host, Amy Rosenberg, founder of Veracity and author of A Modern Guide to Public Relations. So you have reached the portion of the podcast where I'll be going over portions of my book, A Modern Guide to Public Relations. And so if you have any questions or want more information, you can either drop a comment below, or you could pick up a copy of the book anywhere they sell books online, if it's a major bookseller. And if you disagree with anything I'm talking about, or you have a better way to do something, definitely let me know. You can follow us on social. We're at Veracity Marketing on Instagram and LinkedIn. And you could give a comment. You could also tell us maybe you want us to cover something else. We are open to suggestions. Thank you for your support. Hi, everyone. Okay, so we're in A Modern Guide to PR, and we're talking about press releases. And first, we're going to talk about press release formats. Well, not first. We talked about other things with press releases, but now we're talking about the formats. So there are three kinds of press releases that I know of. I mean, this is a little annoying because sometimes PR people can get, like I say in the book, a little prickly about semantics, and we wouldn't want to cause a ruckus. So it's good to know what they are so that everybody's on the same page, basically. Because if you're working with multiple people and then you say one thing and then they think something else, honestly, I don't think it matters, but here it is. Actually, knowing all these will help you when you see what kind of news you're doing. Knowing what the options are will help you know what to do with it. So there's three types of press releases. There's the media advisory / calendar listing. So I already combined two. I think PR people actually separate those. I'm like, I don't know what the point is. We'll talk about that. Then we've got fact sheets, and then we've got what I call general press releases. Okay. So your general press release is just your paragraph style. Okay, like a news article would be. But you can get creative with general press releases too, like by adding some bullet points in there to list stats, maybe not at the top, maybe like in the middle, or at least after the first paragraph. Or you could have a who or a what, not a who or what, a what or a where in there to list where an event might be. And actually that can be better explained by talking about the media advisory or calendar listing, which that follows more of a who, what, where, when style format. And so, I mean, you can open with it. Of course, it'll have a headline always. And then you can open with that general paragraph, or maybe you don't need to. I don't think I've not opened with a general paragraph for a long time though, in a media advisory calendar listing. And then it's more for events and press conferences, and you're just listing out details. But this is really important. You really want to get strategic with it. And remember, in all press releases, the least important information is at the bottom. So then you can change your who, what, where, when, why. We just say that just because, meaning change the order. So a lot of times the who is at the end, but we call it that. And so with the general press release, if you're announcing some larger news, but you have an event that's part of the larger news, you can do like a what and a when, where and a what, whatever, for the event. What is it? The where and when. That could be kind of like a call out box within the general press release. And now the fact sheet, that's a little different. That can be more creative or more just whatever you want to do with it. And that's where you list things on a page. So the facts. So you can do multiple fact sheets for one organization. So like a fact sheet on all of the executives with like a paragraph on each one, or on the products and the services and whatnot. And that's really more for when you're really getting in depth with the PR. So like you already have an online newsroom where the press materials are. So, let's just do 5 fact sheets on X, Y, and Z. But typically you wouldn't really start with doing a fact sheet because, like, let's get some news, right? And so that's all kind of explained in the book. But, you know, I didn't explain exactly how to do a fact sheet because that's kind of, you know, you can figure that out on your own. But the media advisory calendar listing template, that's in there. It's in the book. It's a template. Same, it's on the website too. My website, Veracity. And see, this is the what and the when. Might be backwards. So what I was saying is this is your what, where, when, why, who, la, la. But with a general press release, you can kind of open the same way and you have a really short, like where and when for something. And then you can end with your cute little end paragraph and quote or whatever. And then we've also have a general press release template for general press release. And so here you can see it's more paragraph style. And their template is just explaining what everything is in the release. So you've got like, oh my God, that's a really long boilerplate. But that normally you wouldn't do it that long. But I was explaining what a boilerplate is in the copy. So in the copy, I was saying, okay, this is where you quote, blah, blah, blah. At least you have a starting point with this. I wouldn't call it a real template. It's just was a kind of a fun way to explain it. If you check it out on whatever my website is, veracityagency.com. Bye. Hi. Lo siento, but we're still talking about press releases on A Modern Guide to PR. And so we are talking about, well, today we're talking about what all press releases have. Now, there's different types of things I want to talk about. So there's what I call the boring details, and then what they should have to actually run, which is not boring. I think when I say boring, I've noticed I say this a lot when I'm thinking about what I do and for work. I guess boring is stuff like duh, or like, yeah, that'll run, or boring, like this is what you do every time. But then the interesting stuff is the stuff that will actually work. So then why do we talk about the stuff that is boring when it won't help it run or work at all? I don't know. It's because you'll see these things as a press release writer and wonder, why do we have these things? So the boring things that all press releases have are, well, a title, duh. That's not boring. That is the most important part, except for the email subject line. But actually, I skipped ahead already. So the press release starts with for immediate release. And I guess that classifies it as a press release. And so like, I like make a joke, like it used to be like really important to write a press release. And way back at when you know, when we were sending releases to the New York Times and they actually got picked up, it was like some really important person was like writing for immediate release. Take this seriously. It's like now, I don't know. Now it's a warm up to get going, I guess. And then you can also say for embargoed release if you want it to be embargoed, which means delayed. So you would release it, but you say for embargoed release until X date when you want the news to be announced, if you want to let the press have a head start on the news. Okay, so you've got that. Then you've got the headline. Then you have the dateline, which is when it was announced, which is almost irrelevant now to have that because everything's through email now, which has a date, but we have the dateline. And then part of the dateline is the location. So the city and state where the news was released from. So like the headquarters of your organization, unless you want to get creative. And we change the dateline depending on where it's pouring outside. If you can hear that rain. I'm in Portland. Okay, so we changed the dateline location. There's probably a word for that, the state and city. Depending on, let's say you're headquartered in Arizona, but you have offices throughout, let's say one in Texas, and you want to get the news to run in Texas. Well, you can change the dateline to say it's, Austin, Texas, because you have, a location there. So it would actually make sense. And that's explained more in the book. It's kind of in the local section, like local PR section. And then website links. So you don't want to just list a company without linking, hyperlink in the release to your company that you're writing about. And then you can also hyperlink to different stats you're referencing in the release, or other things like partners or charities. And then the boilerplate is what's at the bottom of every release, and it never changes. So when you hear, oh, that's just boilerplate language, like lawyers say that, it's just language that never changes, except, well, in PR, we can change the boilerplate if there's a reason to change it. So maybe once a year we have new stats, we're going to change it. But those are just kind of, it's general information about the company. And I like having it just because it makes a clean page, ends the page nicely. And then after that, after the boilerplate is the 3 hash mark symbol or the -30 symbol. And I didn't know what that meant. I thought it was just to signify that it was, the release was done. And then my editor on this book, Deb Feckinger, looked it up, and she already knew that it was originated during the Civil War as a telegraphic shorthand. That, like, I guess when you watch movies, it's like stop message. Maybe that's what they really have, the 3 hash mark there instead. Anyway, next time we're going to talk about more important things, like what all press releases should have. So all press releases have these boring things, but do they all have these 2 very interesting and very important things? I don't know. But if they don't, they will not run. So we'll talk about that next time. Hello. On the last Modern Guide to PR video, we talked about what all press releases should have. Now, no, wait, sorry. It's one of those days. It's Friday. We talked about what all, and I was trying to be so cool and try and do this right in the beginning. If you can't tell, I didn't have to look at my book for reference to what my own title is in my book, but then I still messed up. Again, perfection is the enemy. That's a key thing in this book. We'll talk about that later. So last time we talked about what all press releases do have, what they have. This time we're talking about what all press releases should have. Okay, this is big. And why should they have these things? So that they run, meaning like not run physically, so that they get picked up in the press. There's no reason to do a press release if it doesn't get picked up. So we want these 2 things in the release. This is what it should have. It is timeliness and newsworthiness. Sorry, I don't enunciate very well. Timeliness and newsworthiness. Okay. Timeliness is when it's released. Newsworthiness is hooking into some news or predicting the news. So let's see what I highlighted here. Okay, yes. So we want to hook into some news that's already happening, but we want to be careful because we don't want to be crass. So maybe don't do it. Unless this could be a later thing to do, like later in your career, or if it's safe news, but then no one covers safe news, so that's probably not in existence anymore. Or if you're full-time on staff, you could probably do that because you'd have time. firms, it's sometimes harder to do that. It depends on your budget, because it's pretty detailed trying to hook into news that's happening. Like, meaning you gotta go right now. That's kind of part of the timeliness. But anyway, so news, hook into news that's happening, or create your own news. So that's the key to PR, is either creating your own news, like literally you are the PR person. You have to organize the community relations campaign that's then going to get picked up in the press. That's one example. Or as the PR person, you have to dig up the news. So the news of your, of your organization. So your organization is probably doing newsworthy things. So you just need to pay attention and try and dig that up. And then that is what the press release is about. Now, timeliness, you can look at it two ways. Where when you release it, like the time of day literally, or the timeliness with which, timeliness of hooking in. So timeliness of when you release it, let's say you are hooking into news, like newsworthiness, like you're hooking into some real news. You've got to release it soon. You can't release it too far after the news thing happened. Maybe even it has to be that day or the next day. So that's timing. And then you want to add in, you want to outline timely angles. So like, it could even be as simple as like, oh, a holiday's coming up. So XYZ. So like, let's say you're repping some beef. Let's say 4th of July is coming up. So like, okay, there's your timeliness. Like, I don't know, figure that out. Just do something with that. And so, yeah, so adding in timeliness, and then it's also not only when you send it, but also when you follow up, because you want to start to learn, like, when are the good times to follow up with your key media. And after a while you will learn that. And then the release or the book has everything in there in terms of when to follow up with at least TV, because that one you can predict. But a lot of magazines and newspapers, those are all different because they're on different deadlines. So you want to start to maybe learn what those deadlines are. And now it's not as important because their deadlines were yesterday, because they're all also online. So when their newspaper is online, then there isn't really a deadline because that could just get posted right away. That's not true. Anyway, again, I'm diverging from the topic. Okay, so that's what we have. That's it for press releases. We're done. Now we're going to move on next time to probably more important tools. Thank you.
Thanks for listening. For more PR insight, be sure to check out Amy's book, A Modern Guide to Public Relations, at prtalk.co. Also, please subscribe, rate, or leave us a review.